Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do a video for oil change on a 2011 Honda Pilot 3.5 liter V6. First thing we're going to do is drain the oil out. You're going to need a 17 millimeter socket for that, and the drain plug is at the very back of the oil pan. Let's get in the car, take a look at it. So you can see, there's the drain plug right there. And it's at the very back, kind of off to the passenger side on the oil pan. Again, it's 17 millimeter. And we've got our oil pan to drain it all into. So once you start draining the oil, you're going to want to go ahead and remove the oil fill cap. It's right on the front forward part of the engine on the driver's side. That'll just help get that oil out a little bit quicker. I recommend leaving the cap in until you get the oil drain plug out, so you don't have a high volume of oil coming at you when you're trying to remove the plug and not drop it in the drain pan. You have your oil drain plug bolt. You want to go ahead and wipe this down. There's an aluminum crush washer that goes on it. Just want to take a look at this, make sure there's no ridges in it. If you're going to try to reuse it, I usually get a couple of uses out of these, but if you want to be extra special careful, just go to AutoZone and pick up a new one of these. I think they come in a pack of 2 or 3. Just get a new one for every oil change if you want to be cautious. Next, we're going to go ahead and torque this bolt in, and then we're going to take the oil filter out. Okay, now that we have the oil drain plug bolt in hand tight, we're going to go ahead and torque it down to 29 foot-pounds. Again, that's a 17 millimeter socket. We're going to go ahead and torque that down, and then we're going to remove the oil filter. Just a quick tip, if you're torquing this or actually doing this oil change with the vehicle on the ground, which is perfectly possible and pretty easy, you may have a hard time with clearance between the exhaust and the actual wrench that you're torquing it with, so you're going to have to possibly clock the socket to get yourself about as much clearance. You can see my wrench is sitting on the ground, about as much clearance as you can, because when you're torquing, you want to make sure that the wrench hits the torque while you're still in motion. You don't want to stop and then have the wrench hit the torque from a dead stop, because you're actually dealing with some of the running torque of the bolt, or the actual friction of the bolt already, and it may not have been properly torqued. So make sure you clock this out to allow yourself the room to properly torque it in motion. So take the filter off. If it's a little tighter than you can get with your hand, especially these filters for the Honda, they're pretty tiny. You can either use a strap wrench as a regular oil filter strap wrench. Doesn't quite get tight enough, so I use a regular old strap wrench from Home Depot or Lowe's. Or you can use an actual oil filter wrench. This one fits the Fram filter, Tough Guard filter. I'm not sure if it really says the size, unless the B is the size. Yeah, you could pick up the filter in the auto parts store and see if you could try out the oil filter wrenches that they have. I don't see a part number on this, but I actually bought this for a Lancer Evolution, so whatever filter fits that is the same one. But anyway, this makes it a lot easier. It works just as well with a strap wrench, but these suckers go right on the end, and pop your ratchet on. It makes it nice and easy. You can see I have the oil filter socket on my oil filter wrench. I'm going to go ahead and loosen it up. I have your drain pan directly below it, so the remaining oil in the system just can drain out and doesn't make a big old mess. And then I just flip the filter down and let the remainder drain in the pan. And then we can go ahead and put the new filter back in. Once you have your oil filter off, you want to go ahead and clean up the oil filter mount here, and just wipe it off with a rag, clean off any residual old oil or just debris, and we'll put our new filter on. So for the 2011 Honda Pilot V6, I'm using a Fram Tough Guard. It's their middle of the line filter. These are pretty decent filters. You can get them at Walmart or any auto parts store. Models TG7317. Any of the Fram filters are going to be 7317, just the first two alpha characters indicate the series of them. So we're going to go ahead and pour some oil into it. I don't fill them up all the way, but put a little oil in there just to get the filter wet, and whatever residual we have on the top we'll use just to kind of lubricate the gasket on there. So I want to get a little bit on the O-ring. Sorry. Put a little in the channel there. Just get some on the O-ring just so it slides on nice. You get a nice, good seal. And then we're going to thread this guy on. Get him pretty good and hand tight. Don't use a wrench or anything like that to tighten this down. Just get it cranked down hand tight. With these Fram Tough Guard filters, they have a little grippy end on them. It's kind of like grip tape on a skateboard, but this is a rubbery grip, almost like some of the grippy mechanics gloves. So you can get a decent grip, but just don't use a wrench, because if you do, you may have a really hard time getting it off in your next oil change. Okay, so we have our new filter installed and tightened down. You can see there's that grippy end I was talking about. It's all tightened down. You're going to want to wipe off this area under here. It tends to trap a little bit of oil that's dripped. You just don't want it leaking out and making a mess. So all right, we got it. We got our filter in. So now we're going to go ahead and start putting oil back in the engine. To fill the engine back up with oil, because of the funny location of the oil fill port, I actually modified one of those really long funnels that you can get at the auto parts store. I chopped the end off a little bit so you can get up into this. It's kind of fiddly to get into this hole in here, the oil fill port. Got to kind of get up under this inlet for the air intake. Then you can get this guy kind of wedged in there. Keep the lip out so that you can avoid spilling as much as you can. We're going to go ahead and use high mileage Scar Calls for 5W20s, so I use the high mileage Mobil 1. It's about 4.5 quarts is the spec, so I'm going to fill it to 4 quarts. I like leaving it about a half quart low, then firing up the engine, let it run, and then checking it just so I don't overfill it, and then I'll just top it off, checking the dipstick as you do per the manual, and just make sure that the level's right. You don't ever want to fill it up to the exact capacity because there's still a little bit of oil left in the engine, and good chance of overfilling it then. So I usually go about a half quart low from the manual's capacity, and then top it off from there. So that's going to wrap it up. We're going to go ahead, put the 4 quarts in, run the engine for a few minutes, shut it off, let it sit for about 10 minutes, let it drain all back into the pan, check the dipstick, and then top it off as required. Just make sure when you top it off, you give it a few minutes to let the oil completely get into the drain pan, or you may overfill it. Hope this helps some folks out. Pretty simple oil change, just kind of funny things like, you may have to modify your funnel just to make your life a little easier getting in there. And make sure that you torque that bolt down, and drain plug bolt, make sure you have a good aluminum washer on there. So hope this helped out. One thing I forgot to go through was resetting the oil life indicator. So the first thing you're going to do is put the vehicle into the on position, but do not start it. And you can see in the trip information, I've got the mileage right there. You're going to want to roll through the trip reset button until you see the oil life indicator. And I've already reset it to practice this, so it's showing 100%. So you're going to want to hold down on the reset for at least 10 seconds, and you should see, you're going to hold it down until you actually see everything start to flash. Okay, everything's flashing. You're going to release it. You're going to press in the reset again for at least 5 seconds. And you see the number come back, and you're going to release it again, and then you're going to press it in again, and it should stop flashing. And we've reset it. And now you can shut the ignition off, and you're all set.